European hangovers, trap games, and teams on the beach. It's that time of the season again, and there are plenty of intriguing angles for bettors to take in the final few weeks of domestic seasons across Europe. Our panel of betting experts has assembled once more, ready with 2 tips each from England and Italy. All that and more on today's show. Hello and welcome to the Football Betting Pod, powered by Betting Expert. I'm your host, Alan Jenkins, joined as ever by Betting Expert's football editor, Sam Ingram. How are you doing, Sam?
Hello, Dan. All good. How are you?
I'm great. We'll bring in the rest of the crew because we need to talk about the Champions League stuff last night and the night before. It's semi-final week, and I think both were intriguing in their own ways and set up really, really interesting second legs next week, right? And we don't want to wait until Monday to get that out of the way.
Yeah, last night was just ridiculous. I've said it already, but it's probably the best game I've seen in years, long time. It's just non-stop action. Inter looked like they score on every break. Barcelona looked like they score every time they got the ball. In Inter's half, it was just ridiculous. And Lamine Yamal, oh my God. Ridiculous
pretty
footballer.
Good, isn't he? Pretty good.
We had the discussion, Sam, in London, didn't we, last month when you said he's the best player you've seen at 17, and I agreed with you. To be honest with you, I agreed with you, but I was just trying to come up with a list of Rooney was probably the only one I could say that would rival him at that age, but I think now he's surpassed it, isn't he?
He wasn't.
Yeah, he surpassed it.
It was at Everton as well, wasn't he? Obviously, he was just coming into.
I think he was 18 when he scored that hat-trick against Fenerbahce. He wasn't doing this. He's Yamal now. The consistency has taken him up.
Champions League semi-final. That is Scott Thornton, and joining us as well is Daniele. How are you feeling after last night?
I'm all right. I'm still in the library, by the way, if you can see or notice it. But behind me, these are all books about how to manage the blood pressure and, advice from the best cardiologist in the country. Because I had a bit of a tough night. It was I couldn't say it was a great watch because, as an Inter fan, if you want your team to win 1-0 or to shut down shop after Thuram scored a fantastic back heel, a back heel goal is not even that talked much about it. And there was also an overhead kick from Denzel Dumfries between all of that. And probably we talk about Yamal, who clipped the bar twice. I think, it was very encouraging to see that, first of all, Inter are not dead and buried as many people have pictured them after 3 consecutive defeats. And they went there with no fear, never have fear, and that's something they've shown in this Champions League consistently. Having said that, leaving the Montjuic with regrets is great, but at the end of the day, is the end result that counts, and the feeling I got is that Barcelona is still stronger, Barcelona is still favorites, and no matter what, they're going to set up and play in the same way at the San Siro, with the high line, with the high press. Of course, big blow for Inter, Lautaro Martinez might not be there. He only missed one of the last 55 Champions League games for Inter. I think it's a massive blow, and they're even talking about Lewandowski may be able to feature, so I think that will tilt the balance quite a lot. Let's wait and see. Thanks God it's only 6 days away, because I don't think I could cope with a longer wait.
Well,
I know as all the goals were going in, I know you're all counting the tackles when you have to make sure that bet came in. Though that was the way it had to go.
I'm sure you were the only one doing that, Scott. If you do need your blood pressure taken, those watching the video can probably agree that Scott is there ready to take it. But I do want to talk about the other game as well, Arsenal PSG. Any thoughts on that ahead of the second leg in Paris next week? Sam, do you want to go first?
Yeah, exactly like the Inter-Barca game. It's just finely poised, isn't it? That could go one or two ways. I would obviously PSG heavy favourites now, and I would imagine that they do progress to the semis, but Arsenal are right in it.
BETSiE, did you see the BETSiE changes this morning? 64.9% chance for PSG to win the Champions League now. Into second with 14.5.
Crazy.
That's very high.
Yeah.
You wouldn't fancy them 65-35 in any of the finals either, would you? So I suppose
if it is Barca and PSG in the final, I think it is a very good matchup for PSG. And for everyone watching as well. To be fair.
It'll be 8-8.
Yeah,
that full time
could be one of the best Champions League
finals.
It'll
be ridiculous.
Yeah. Well, We'll save some of that for the Champions League pod, which we will be recording on Tuesday. Probably have to, because it's Bank Holiday Monday, so we'll have to do it Tuesday morning and get it out very quickly. Other than that, let's get on with this week's bets. Sam, domestic action this weekend. As I said in the intro, it's the last couple of weeks of the season, so I think it's a time that you really like, isn't it? With teams fighting for things. It's not a time for the data nerds, is it? It's football nerd time. We're looking at implications. We're looking at teams on the beach. We're looking at free transfers to play for. You don't want to get injured. You like this time, don't you?
Yeah, you can chuck your spreadsheets out the window. This all comes down to desire, motivation, momentum, all the kind of buzzwords that I usually hate to use, usually hate hearing in terms of a football match, but it's true. And today I've landed on 2 League One games, 2 teams that need to win to get into the playoffs, Leyton Orient and Reading. The first bet, I've got Reading versus Barnsley, Reading minus 0.75 Asian handicap at 1.95. So in League One, Reading sit on the same points as Leyton Orient, but rather agonisingly just one place out of the playoff places. That means that they have the better Leyton Orient's result in Huddersfield. So Orient's goal difference is 8 better than Reading, so it's pretty safe to assume that goal difference won't come into play. If Barnsley draw, Reading will nick playoffs with a victory, and if Barnsley lose, a draw will do. So the stadium's going to be a sellout. It's the biggest game for the club in a long, long time. Given all the goings on off the field, promotion to the Championship would just be an absolute dream. And I think most neutrals are gunning for Reading in terms of them getting into playoffs and hopefully them getting promotion. But Reading are quite short here. They're at 1.7. And I understand why. They need to win, and that is usually reflected in the prices at this stage of the season. So you'll probably look across the scheduling on your bookmaker site this weekend and look at a few prices and think that is ridiculously short, but it's factored into, the motivation, the wants and the needs. And alongside the short price, their opponents, Barnsley, who they come up against the weekend, final day of the season, they've disappointed for a while. Conor Hourihane is in the door as a new manager, but his arrival hasn't really seen much of a bounce in that part of the world. His Barnsley side have won 1 game in 9, losing to an already relegated and bottom of the table Shrewsbury last weekend. So if that doesn't point towards a team that has pretty much given up, then I'm not sure what will. The difference in both camps here in motivation and form, coupled with a sellout crowd and the need to outdo Leyton Orient elsewhere, I think it's going to all come together here in the shape of a Reading win. They boast the 5th best home record as we head into the final day, losing just 4 games out of 22. So I've ended on Reading on the Asian handicap, minus 0.75, 1.95.
Yeah, consider the clear motivation here and how it plays into the bet. The head-to-head record isn't great for Reading. They've drawn the last 2, lost to Barnsley in the time before that. They lost this exact fixture last season, 3-1, back in December 2023. My only notes with this one, Sam, are you concerned by how much that price has gone in? And you said yourself, so it's quite short for 7th hosting 12th in League One, right?
Yeah, it is short, but like I said, each dressing room is just completely contrasting at the minute. If you dig into Barnsley a little more, you see only 2 teams, Mansfield and Shrewsbury, who they lost to last week. Only those 2 have returned fewer points than Barnsley in this calendar year. So if their 2025 form was stretched out over 46 games, they would have been relegated this weekend. So they're on a current run of 13 games without a clean sheet. And that Shrewsbury defeat last week, the new boss, Conor Hourihane, went on record after his players were booed off the pitch and said, and I'm paraphrasing a little bit here, but he said, "I'm embarrassed. I hope they are embarrassed." Another big glaring thing in my face is that a lot of changes need to happen. I know where the squad is. I know where the club is at. I think people need to realise what situation we've got in front of us. So 2 teams in a completely different moment and striding for different things. Reading clearly holding a genuine playoff hope, and Barnsley, they just can't wait to shut up shop for the summer quick enough. If Reading do nick a playoff spot and go up, then they could actually pass Ruben Sayers and Hull coming down the other way. Sayers left Reading in December and jumped ship to Hull, but I don't think many can blame him because, considering the outlook at Reading for the majority of this season and beyond. So that's an interesting quirk. And on the same day Sayers left the club, Noel Hunt was appointed as first-team manager for Reading on the same day, promoted from the younger age groups, which was a massive show of faith. And he's repaid that faith magnificently with 45 points in 28 games. So hopefully he'll add another few here. Reading are a short price, 1.7, but still, I think it's worth backing them this weekend.
If you are somebody who wanted to take the proverbial spreadsheet that Sam threw out the window, BETSiE's projections for this: 1.81 projected goals for Reading, 1.77 projected for Barnsley. So potentially a high-scoring game, potentially a close game. But if you want the footballing angle, maybe there's a lot more than what the data suggests. So that's what Sam's going for his first bet, which is Reading minus 0.75 in the Asian handicap market against Barnsley. It's a 1.95 with the full unit on that. Scott, over to you, looking at another match in England, this time from the Premier League. The new FA Cup finalists, Manchester City, their first game back after that cup game.
Yeah, the early kickoff, Man City versus Wolves. I'm going for under 27.5 shots and under 34.5 throws in the match. I've tried to pick games basically where there's a lot riding on it. Wolves, okay, they don't have anything to play for, but they've won their last 6. Vitor Pereira want to finish the season strongly. He's obviously come in just before Christmas. And really, finishing strongly sets the project up nicely for the summer, where they're going to have to do some recruitment. It does look like Cunha is going to leave. Maybe some other players will leave. So there's going to be a rejig at Wolves. So they're going to try and put a shift in at the Etihad. So I think we can rely on some of the data here. Obviously, City, they need to win. They need to keep winning games to get into that top 4, and they can salvage the season with silverware and a Champions League place. I'm sure Pep would be delighted with that. He'd never say it in the media, but from where they were looking, heading into that Christmas period, this is very much a success. Man City are not the same team they used to be. We all know that. They've looked slightly better in recent weeks. I was quite impressed with them against Forest, even though Forest did have chances and actually won the XG battle. City did control the game. They just looked vulnerable to the counter occasionally. In terms of the throw-ins angle, though, it's not really a new thing. City matches have lacked throw-ins for the last 5 seasons. This season, their matches are averaging 29.24. That drops to 28.88 if we factor in the data from the last 3 seasons. Basically, City are so good on the ball, so good at playing through the press, so efficient, and they never kick the ball into touch when they're clearing the ball. They're always trying to maintain possession, recycle the play. So the numbers dwindle. So under 34.5 in terms from a City standpoint looks very, very doable. Wolves matches are averaging 35.03 throw-ins, but this tends to go out the window when they play Man City. They were 31 in the reverse fixture. And as you know, Dan, I prefer it when City played the Etihad when we're going to back under throw-ins, and they were 23 the last time they played at this ground. So that could go comfortably below the 34.5 that I'm asking for here. City, as I say, not the same team. Haaland returned to training yesterday. Probably not going to get the full 90, but even when he's there, they're not quite as menacing. Match against Forest last weekend, so 22 shots overall. It's very much about control for City at the moment. They're not able to just hit it with that Barcelona-type barrage of chances that they can rack up. So, okay, City are more than capable of getting sort of 18 shots here, but I still think that'll mean the game falls under the 27.5 because they are focused on limiting the opposition, really. They've been 27 shots or less in 9 of their last 10 Premier League home games, with those seeing an average of 22.2. So again, very low in comparison to the line required for this bet to land. And then just a nice one. This bet's landed in the last 3 meetings between these sides at the Etihad. Those matches have seen 27 throws and 23.67 shots on average. So all the numbers tell us that, we should see City in control, a lack of throw-ins, and probably a lack of shots as well, as City fail to really go through the gears like they have done in previous seasons.
Yeah, I'll start on City slightly because they have turned a bit of a corner, haven't they? I think their season is kind of bookended, or you can put it into chapters based on the games they've played against Tottenham this season, right? So Tottenham, they lost 4-0 in the League Cup back in October, which started that dismal run. Probably the lowest point of that run was a 4-0 loss to Tottenham. And then they played them again back in February, and I think 1-1-0. And since then, we've seen a new I say a new City. We've seen an older City, the controlling City, which does feed in quite well to your bet, Scott. But on Wolves, what is going on with them at the moment? 6 straight wins, and do you think that form would maybe give them a little bit of hope in this match? You know, they've really got nothing to play for, but it seems to be helping them at the moment. Do you think maybe they might start to have a go at this City team, or do you think it's just going to be what say the same as we've seen from City in the last couple of weeks, which is controlling games, get a couple of goals, kill it, which does feed in quite well to the bed?
I think Wolves will take confidence, but I think City will control and win the game. I look at the 6 wins for Wolves: Southampton, West Ham, Leicester, then Man United and Tottenham, who've basically discarded the season for the Europa League already. And then obviously Ipswich being the other one. So, it hasn't been against quality opposition, but they are good enough. They've got the quality to hurt City. And I just think finishing the season on a positive note for Wolves would be a massive boost ahead of what looks set to be a busy summer transfer window. But yeah, we're banking on City control. If City were 2-0 up at the hour mark, I think that would be ideal for this bet, where they're just sort of knocking the ball around and because City just trying to get the points on the ball and they're not going to pull up any trees now. Win that FA Cup and in fairness to City, it's probably downplaying some of their wins in recent weeks. There's an element of fortune about some of them, like say Forest won the XG battle last week, but City did look pretty good. They beat Villa at home. They beat Palace 5-2, and Palace were in great form. I think Palace went ahead in that game as well, didn't they? So I think City have showed character. They're a good team again. Not quite the City team we've come to expect, but they're on their way to that point.
Yeah, they probably have. Still need to get top 4 wrapped up, or top 5 wrapped up, but they'll have one eye on the FA Cup final in a couple of weeks' time, won't they? And just getting players like Haaland up to full fitness. So interesting time for them. Scott's first bet is under 27.5 shots and under 34.5 throws in Man City versus Wolves. That's a 1.86 with a full unit on that. Daniele, over to you for the game in between the games for Inter.
Yes, Inter hosting Hellas Verona on Saturday night. They play at the same time as Barcelona, by the way, but they play a few hours after Napoli has traveled to Lecce. So now Inter could start this game -6. And I do feel, depending on what Napoli does at Lecce, the starting 11 of Inter is going to change massively. There are already talks about resting the 11 players that are probably going to play with Barcelona for this game, because the league is almost gone. I mean, really, Napoli, according to BETSiE, have got over 70% chances of winning the title. If they finish tied, there will be a playoff, but seems that Inter chances have gone after they lost to Roma. And I think, having to play Barcelona only 4 days after at the San Siro will obviously detract mental energies and concentration from Inter, considering also that they have to deal with a few injuries. No Benjamin Pavard, no Lautaro Martinez, the captain is going to miss there, and I think the likes of Thuram, perhaps Di Marco, if he's in for another run-in from Yamal, Acerbi, they're going to all given a rest. The big misconception with Inter season this season has been that they have 2 squads of equivalent value. That's not true. Inzaghi got 13, 15 players of very good values, but they cannot afford to make too many changes. And of course, competing on 3 fronts has given its toll. Everyone is tired, even Barcelona tired. Barcelona, though, have got a slight advantage over Inter. They travel to Valladolid, who are already relegated, whereas Inter face Verona, who still need a couple of points to be safe. But let's do the maths. Bets suggest Inter are going to score 7 more goals between now and the end of the season. Verona are going to score around 3 goals between now and the end of the season. Inter are going to make changes. I think this is going to be an under 2.5 goals, and actually I think the line is quite generous. Under 2.75 goals Asian line at 184. If there are 3 goals, you only lose half a stake. If Inter wins this one, which I got my doubt about it, they win 1-0. Probably that will do. But I think, the title is really heading to Napoli.
It's a shame considering the position Inter were in a couple of weeks ago. It's something we talked about on the show last week, wasn't it? Maybe they sort of spread themselves a little bit too thin given the size of the squad, Daniele?
It's wonderful to see a team thinking they can win everything and they go in every match for everything. But as I mentioned last time, I think the idea of winning a treble, it's overinflated, it's overrated. Only 8 teams have done it in the history of European football, and a few of them when football was played at a slower pace. Going back to this game, if you look at Verona, the last 8 away games, they've all and under 2.5 goals. They don't get heavily beaten. They lost 2-0 to Napoli. They lost 1-0 to Juve, 2-0 to Juventus. They are a good side. 1-0 to Roma as well, a loss. So they are a side that deserves to stay in Serie A despite changing pretty much the entire team year in and year out. So it's not just about Inter. Let's consider also the opposition. Again, I think it is an argument often goes undervalued. There are also other teams on the pitch, and I think Verona could be a good match. Reverse fixture finish 5-0. Don't take them into account at all. I think it's an under, as I said. Inter probably needs to go back to just to do the simple things, maybe granting a 1-0 result. But I think that will plenty for this bet.
Yeah, I like it. Verona got the lowest average match goal total in the last 8 games in Serie A, 1.38 total goals. Obviously, Inter have struggled for goals in the last couple of weeks. That wasn't evident when they were 2-0 up in Barcelona with inside 21 minutes with an overhead kick and a flick.
Yeah, but the sources of goal recently have been set pieces as well. If you look in other games, also against Bayern. So there is a pattern to goals as well, of course. Thuram's back is brilliant, but goals have dried up, I think, and it is difficult to play against low blocks. Inter don't necessarily have somebody who can take people on. I would imagine Denzel Dumfries to get a bit of a rest here because he's coming off an injury. So everything points towards a low-scoring game.
Yeah, you're going to rest your goal scorer, haven't you, before the second leg?
I think Barcelona are going to rest Yamal. At least they should against Valladolid. But between the two, there is more pressure on Barcelona to win the game because they're 4 points ahead and they got El Clásico after the Champions League. Inter, if they don't win the league and they qualify for the Champions League final, it's still a very, very good season.
Yeah.
Napoli play Lecce, Genoa, Cagliari, and Parma, which are all pretty much safe apart from Lecce. I don't see them dropping points. Inter plays Lazio, Torino, and Como away the last game of the season. So again, the running is much tougher for Inter. I don't see Inter winning 4 games, maybe 2 of them and a couple of draws. So yeah, even mathematically, I think it's Napoli to lose now.
Is this a bad time to say I bet on Napoli to win the title earlier in the season at 8.0?
Well, I mean, we did bet on Napoli to finish top 4, which we got.
Yeah, you had that on the pod.
So, which I'm obviously chuffed. But yes, I mean
that was 5 units as well, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was 5 units, and they were only 150 something. So I think it's a decent return.
Highest unit bet we had, I think. So, okay, not all bad.
So there would be a playoff, though, if there would be a playoff between Inter and Napoli.
If they finish level on points, there's a playoff potentially at San Siro because Inter have got a better goal difference. And dates to be decided. It will all depend on when the Champions League will be played. If Inter will be there, probably 3 or 4 days before the Champions League. So yeah, I mean, it would be crazy, but I think it's very unlikely, to be fair. I don't see Napoli dropping 3 points.
Has that happened before?
Yeah, 1964, Bologna against Inter. Bologna won, played in Rome that season. But again, can't draw any comparisons because 1960, 1970, 1980 is completely different football. And these days and age, imagine last game of the season, then you got the playoff for the Scudetto, and then potentially Inter got the Champions League final. I don't know.
That would be amazing as a spectacle.
Yeah, that's fine, but I don't know. I don't want to even think about it. But, it's just, I just don't think it's feasible. I don't think it's possible. I don't think Napoli drops 3 points in those games. That's all. I don't think Inter gains 12 points. It's just, unless they lose a Lecce. But really, I don't know. One of the lowest scoring sides in Serie A. No, I just don't see that.
Yeah. We'll see. Let's just hope that this bet comes in. Daniele's first tip of the pod. Under 2.75 goals in the Asian goal line in Inter versus Verona. That's a 1.84 with a full unit on that. Sam, back over to you for another of your picks from League One.
Yeah, Huddersfield v Leyton Orient. I'm going for a Leyton Orient win. That's at 1.85 now. You can get early payout with Bet365, of course. And as we've touched on already, I think Reading's going to beat Barnsley elsewhere in League One. I'm fairly confident about that. I think they should have enough there. So if that's the case, then Leyton Orient have to beat Huddersfield on final day to ensure that they don't drop out of the top 6. Orient currently occupies that 6th spot, the final position in the table that guarantees playoff football. If we're going to go off form, this is, in Leyton Orient, this is the best team in the division versus the worst in Huddersfield. Orient have won their last 5 games at the stage of a season where pressure's obviously building, when they need to keep churning results out over the line. And Richie Wellens, the Orient manager, he'll be key to that. He's that kind of personality, expects the very best from all of his players game after game. And the home team here, Huddersfield, they've lost 11 of 14. They've lost their last 5 games on the spin. Since sacking Michael Duff, they've lost 7 out of 9 matches. Only Shrewsbury and Bristol Rovers, who are both relegated from the division, have returned fewer points since Duff was relieved of his duties as Huddersfield town manager. And like the Reading game here, we're siding with a team in better form, in a better moment. The motivation is sky high to get a result against the team who are seemingly desperate to draw a line under the season and go off on their holiday. So very similar to the last bet, Dan. I've gone for Leyton Orient win at 1.85.
Yeah, it's another one that will irritate the data nerd, Sam, because BETSiE's really liking Huddersfield for this one. Obviously, goes back, the underlying data goes back a little bit further than 5 games. 1.93 projected goals for Huddersfield, 1.18 for Leyton Orient, 0.74. If BETSiE was setting a goal, it would be Huddersfield minus 0.74. So well off. I think that's one of the biggest disagreements we've had with BETSiE from a punter on the pod ever, really. So why? I know the form. I know it's over 5 games. It's 5 wins and 5 losses, but
so BETSiE's obviously, this data is from season long information, yeah, and she's not factoring in form of any kind. She can't factor in motivation or desire to go and get the 3 points on the final day. So I think that's really, really important when looking at data projections. And in these circumstances, don't want to talk ill of BETSiE because she is great at what she does, but I think the bookmaker prices are probably more of a better insight into the lay of the land and what's actually going on here. Huddersfield, projected 1.93 goals, Leyton Orient 1.18. It's far away really how I see this game, and it's far and away how this game will go. But we shall see. That's the beauty of this. We shall see in a couple of days. And just, I suppose to dig into Huddersfield Town a bit more, just to give you maybe more of an insight of what's going on recently. And similarly, actually, to the Barnsley's lack of clean sheets I mentioned earlier, they've had 13 games without a clean sheet on the spin. And looking at Huddersfield, no team finds themselves on a longer streak without a clean sheet in League One than Huddersfield. 14 games now. They've conceded at least 1 goal in 14 of 14 recent matches. So Orient should be good for a goal. I'm pretty confident about that. And similar to Barnsley, this is a Huddersfield squad getting booed off by their own fans week by week. Lots of talk on social media about fans not renewing season tickets due to having no manager, no director of football, 12 players out of contract in the summer. Are those 12 players really going to be giving it their all on the final day? Potentially. They haven't done for a long time, the back end of the season. It's not the happiest of places right now. And I think that'll probably show in the stadium on Saturday. It was predicted that there was going to be a pretty low turnout at the stadium on Saturday. And probably luckily for Huddersfield, the captain, Jonathan Hoggs, just announced that he'll be leaving the club, that I think he's retiring. So that'll probably boost the numbers a little bit because it was looking pretty dim on that front. But if that Orient goal that we're expecting goes in early, it could be a long afternoon for Huddersfield because Orient are playing brilliantly. You've got Charlie Kelman up top, 2 goals ahead of Jay Stanfield in the race for the Golden Boot. He's on 21 goals, so he's going to be sniffing around for another to cement that individual honour for himself. And I think there's a lot to like at the prices, despite Orient having to go away to what was previously seen as a solid-looking automatic promotion contender in the summer. And that's probably baked into BETSiE's projections as well, because in terms of squad value, not long come down from the Championship, Huddersfield should really be one of the leading lights in the league, and they're just not right now. So Orient to win at 1.85.
Yeah, very interesting one. Huddersfield plus 0.5 in this game is BETSiE's best bet of the week as well in League One. If you want the conflicting opinion, BETSiE's best bets for League One in this this calendar year have brought in an ROI of 29.2%, plus 6.56 units, 13 wins, 2 pushes from 21 bets. So we'll see. We'll see. Maybe this one goes the other way. Sam's right, and we'll have to have a word with BETSiE about including some underlying data on passion or whatever else. Wanting
I've
it
just
on
noticed
the beach
how
mode.
bizarre Huddersfield season's been. So I vaguely remember them sort of been knocking on the door at the automatic places after an incredible run of form spanning from October to late January. And they've barely won any games since then. They went, that's, I think, 12 games unbeaten. And now it's just completely fallen apart. What has gone wrong there?
Yeah, I just think it's kind of fell out of form. Michael Duff fell out of favour. Got rid of him, hoping for a little bit of a bounce at the club, but it just hasn't happened. In January, they brought in new signings, Dion Charles from Bolton, Taylor as well up top, 2 really good strikers for the level, and they've not really had too much of an impact. And it's just, I suppose, that the longer the season's gone on, now they've slipped out of playoff contention. It's just got worse and worse. And yeah, I have the feeling that the club at the minute, from a neutral's point of view, outside looking in, it doesn't look great. So yeah, strange old season.
16 games unbeaten. 16 games, I was just checking.
Yeah.
It's incredible.
Stayed in the playoff spots until, when was it, around sort of March time, and just nowhere near since then, nowhere near. But we'll see. We'll see. It's a very interesting one. Sam versus Machine. We'll see how this one goes. Sam's gone for Leyton Orient to win against Huddersfield, 1.85 with a full unit on that. He's gone for the 1x2 rather than the Asian handicap line. So you can get the early payout if you're using Bet365, which we are for this pick. And Scott, over to you, back up to the Premier League. Brighton versus Newcastle.
Yeah, this should be one of the more entertaining games. One Herzler came in, it's safe to say he made an instant impact. He was well liked by the supporters, obviously, coming in from a popular De Zerbi, and a lot of people were fans of the way they were playing, direct running, and they looked a little bit more free-form in the way they attacked, a little bit less formulaic than maybe they were under the predecessor. But things have kind of fizzled out for Brighton. Obviously, they beat West Ham last week to end, I think it was a run of 5 games without a win. And they've still got a chance to secure a European place, which would save it. And obviously, it'd still be a story for Brighton. Brighton, they're not a team that is accustomed to European football. They've secured it under the Zerbi once. But it's just been, it's now or never, basically. This is a massive game for both teams, for Brighton and for Newcastle. Newcastle obviously sitting pretty in 3rd place. But the fact Brighton need to show something is why I'm siding with over 34.5 tackles and over 12.5 goal kicks. So the thinking is we need a bit of frantic chaos and just some good football, basically, where the urgency of this time of the season really comes into play. As I say, Brighton down in 9th, but because of the English team's performances in UEFA competitions, that could be enough itself. But Palace getting to the FA Cup final is probably a slight blow, just in case they did pull off the upset there. But they've got to try and finish as high as possible. They're level on points with 8th, 6 behind Villa, probably not going to catch that up. But 8th place is very much attainable. That's what they'll be aiming for. Newcastle, though, they've got Chelsea, Forest, City breathing down their necks. On 2 of those sides can get in there, maybe even Villa in contention. So I just think it's going to be a fiercely entertaining game, to be honest. And as you'd expect, the numbers back that up. Brighton matches have seen the 4th most tackles in the Premier League this season, with 38.03 on average. Again, comfortably above our 34.5. There's been 35 tackles or more in 7 of their last 10 Premier League matches, with the average of 38.5. They faced Newcastle twice this season, once in the Cup and once in the league, both obviously at St James's Park. 39 tackles in the most recent meeting back in March. There's no real Cup factor urgency there, thinking the tackles just no way that increased the tackle numbers, because in the reverse fixture in the league, there were 52 tackles. So obviously, the 39 would be more than enough for this bet, but 52 does make it seem like it could go even higher. So I was quite surprised with that. Usually the Cup games see a lot higher, so hopefully that'll continue this time around. Frantic games usually see tackles, but they usually see goal kicks as well. Newcastle matches have seen an average of 14.65 goal kicks. Brighton matches 14.25, and there were 15 goal kicks in both competitive matches between the sides this season. So this bet builder has landed in both the competitive matches as well. So at 1.83, it looks a very, very nice bet.
Yeah, it was a bit of a feisty one, that FA Cup clash, wasn't it? Back in March, 2 players sent off. in that game. Are you worried with this one, Scott? I think there's a decent chance that Newcastle, with everything they've got to play for, how little Brighton have got to play for. I mean, Brighton are on the proverbial beach, aren't they? They're on Brighton Beach on the pebbles. Like, are you worried that Newcastle just come up and dominate this match, and we don't see the sort of competitive nature that we saw, especially in that FA Cup clash? Is that a concern?
Because of Europe is such a big prize for Brighton, I think it'd be the second time they've got into Europe. An eighth place could be all the difference. I still think they've got to maintain their motivation levels, and the fact that they've won last week, I think just finishing strongly and getting eighth is a massive card on a stick for Brighton. And I should add as well that FA Cup clash obviously went to extra time. 39 tackles is the Italian normal time, not the extra time tally. We did factor that in. So yeah, I just think Brighton have to try and get some points out the remaining games, because they'll be kicking themselves if they do get on the beach now in their heads and then miss out by a point on Europe. It's such a massive prize for them in terms of planning for next season, budgets, attracting players. So because of all the permutations of the Premier League and qualifying for Europe, it's just finish as high as possible, and that's all they can do.
Yeah, it's they need one more point, don't they, this season from their final four fixtures to secure the second best season they've had in the Premier League, Brighton. If they win all four, then they will get past the best season they had under De Zerbi in 22-23, which was 62 points. So maybe some club history, but it would take four pretty exceptional results for them to get over that line. But maybe Brighton, maybe Europe is the hope that's going to give them. Maybe Europe is the goal that will give them the hope to get this bet over the line, which is over 34.5 tackles and over 12.5 goal kicks in Brighton versus Newcastle. That's a 1.83 with a full unit on that. Daniele, over to you. Round it out with your final bet, looking at a game from the Premier League.
Yes, we're on the Premier League, and that's the London Derby, probably one of the last ones of this season. West Ham against Spurs. Now, Spurs are in their worst run ever in the Premier League. They are confirmed they will finish mathematically bottom of bottom 10 in the Premier League. The first time they failed to make it in the top 10 since 2008-2009. There are already talks that even a Europa League win will not save Ange Postecoglou's place, although he would have delivered on his promise of always winning in the second season. We'll see, because they'll have to play Bodo Glimt after this game. But I'm going purely on statistics, on mathematics. I'm going purely on BETSiE here. West Ham at the moment are behind Spurs, 1 point behind the table against Spurs. It will mean a lot to them to finish above Spurs, because he's a big rival. Of course, it would. But they are projected to end the season 1.3 point less behind Spurs. West Ham haven't finished above Spurs since 2007-2008. Now, Spurs are projected to lose one more game this season, making 20 defeats. Yet, they should finish above West Ham. I look at the fixtures of Tottenham, West Ham, and actually West Ham have got easier fixtures in terms of points per game average of the next opponents. West Ham 1.08, Tottenham 1.37. Therefore, logic suggests me that Tottenham are not going to lose this one if then West Ham have got much easier fixtures than them when they can pick up points. Therefore, I'm going to back Spurs with almost with an half chance, with an Asian handicap by 0.25, which takes into account getting the draw on your side. It's a good odds, 1.95. So if they draw, you only win half a stake, because I think Spurs, after having lost so many games, they will regress to mean and at least get a draw here. Okay, it is sandwiched in between the two Europa League games, and that's a big caveat. But Ange Postecoglou is not a manager that makes compromises. He's not a manager that he's happy to throw a game away. He's an all or nothing manager, and whichever formation he chooses, I don't think he's going to go there just throwing the towel and playing the kids. He will play a decent formation, and they will be given the very same instruction, which maybe haven't worked very well so far this season as they did in the rest of the season. And ultimately, I think West Ham have been poor, and I think they might go on and not win this game. Having said that, getting the draw on board seems like a good strategy. What do you guys think?
Yeah, personally, Daniele, I have a thing right now where I just refuse to back Tottenham Hotspur in any way possible. But I see where you're getting at. We're looking at BETSiE in terms of goal projections, that West Ham, Tottenham, both about the same. Obviously, with a quarter goal start, it's attractive enough maybe for you to get involved. Obviously, the priority is in Europa League, though, isn't it? We mentioned the other week that Bodo Glimt at home, like, really quite handy. So they're going to need to go into that second leg fully prepared, as fresh as possible. And maybe against West Ham, he is going to ring the changes. He might have to.
True, but equally, Bodo Glimt away from home are poor, and they almost got knocked out by Lazio. I remember previous years they suffered a heavy beating at Roma. So probably against Bodo Glimt, if you play the first leg at home, it's a big advantage, because if Tottenham wins 3-0, they could go into Norway a little bit more relaxed. Therefore, this bet of the weekend, where at least they need a draw at the London Stadium, they might come in.
Yeah, it's an interesting one, Daniele. I'll be honest, I wasn't expecting you to go this way with it, as somebody who's been a big proponent of the European hangover over the last couple of weeks.
True.
Are you concerned about that at all? Because it does feel like all of Ange Postecoglou's eggs are in the European basket at this point.
True, but I would have been more concerned if Tottenham played the first leg away. This is a home game against Bodo Glimt, where I think they can have a good chance of almost wrap the qualification up. Bodo Glimt are not the same team when they travel. I saw them play against Lazio. They were very, very vulnerable. And I think, again, I believe in the regression to mean, perhaps more than to the European hangover, because I think Tottenham are a better squad than what the numbers look like. And again, that BETSiE projection that shows West Ham still finishing behind Tottenham despite how poor Tottenham have been, make me suggest that this is not the one they're going to lose, because then West Ham got easier fixtures coming up. Again, based on average points per game of the rivals, it all goes out of the window. So yeah, probably West Ham biggest game of the season now until the end of the season. Not the biggest game of the season for Tottenham, but would you not fancy them at least to not get beaten after such a poor form? In the last 8 games, Tottenham have the relegation form, only 4 points collected, only 3 teams done better than them. I think somehow they'll revert it.
Yeah, if Tottenham do want that extra motivation as well, they're 1 win away from hitting that magic 40-point mark with 4 games left to go. So that's the big one. Bloody hell, it's been a bad season for them, isn't it?
Awful.
Daniele's second bet is Tottenham plus 0.25 in the Asian handicap line against West Ham. That's a 1.95 with a full unit on that. Let's do a recap of the bets, please. Sam, starting with your 2 picks from League One.
Yes, I've gone for Reading minus 0.75, Asian handicap at 1.95 for a unit, and also Leyton Orient to beat Huddersfield at 1.85 with early payout at 1 unit.
And Scott.
Man City versus Wolves, under 27.5 shots and under 34.5 throws. That's at 1.86. And then Brighton versus Newcastle, over 34.5 tackles and over 12.5 goal kicks at 1.83. And it's a unit on both.
And Daniele.
Inter Milan Verona under 2.75 goals Asian line at 184. Tottenham with an Asian handicap plus 0.25 as they travel to West Ham, 195, both 1 unit.
Good stuff. If you are going to be using any of the bets from today's show, then please gamble responsibly, only betting what you can afford to lose. Thank you as ever to Sam Ingram.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Scott Thornton.
Thank you.
And thank you, Daniele Fisichella.
Thank you.
Thanks for me. We'll be back next week.
Thank you to the guests to the library as well.
Oh, yes. I mean, one of Norfolk busiest library, which I'm now an honorary member. Probably people think, oh, how many books does this guy read? A few, but not one a day. But yeah, I mean, if you want to unveil this for listeners and viewers, I've been without internet for over week and a half, also due to a major provider failing. But let's not name it. One that shows the footy, but that narrows it down. Anyway, well, one that shows the footy,
right,
not the one that shows one. That narrows it down a bit. Anyway, tomorrow I should be back on the 21st century, so yeah, hopefully.
Good stuff. Support your local as ever.
Yeah, I mean, I love the library. I love the library. It's great.
Yeah, keep it as a business. Good stuff.
Yes.
We'll be back on Tuesday.
See you later.
See ya.
See ya.